Where my book YouTube girlies at? Hi besties, I have trust issues. Okay, I hear some, and I am not about to let you miss it. Y'all should be scared. I know she can afford premium Canva. This session is not a freebie. Hi, I'm Dante, and I'm a pop culture obsessed social media consultant and digital creator. If you want to become an icon in training, make sure to subscribe to my channel and don't forget to keep up with me on socials, which is all linked below. I also have a ton of free resources, private communities with exclusive content, playlists, and more that is also all linked below in the description. So I wanted to briefly talk about how I got back into reading. So I actually used to love reading in elementary school, but you know, life happened. I used to do office duty in grade 7 and 8, and me and my best friend at the time, we would be reading Harry Potter book, Geronimo Stilton, what else was popular at the time? Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Magic Tree House. Now that honestly, weddings, graduations, funerals, like Magic Tree House, like that was my shit. So then we moved on, you know, we get to high school, we get to English class, we're reading a lot of different Shakespeare plays, and I didn't really have nor desire to kind of do reading for leisure because it was just, I don't know, I just kind of gave up reading. I'm like, okay, well, I got my phone now, we got Twitter, so we don't need this. But then as you guys know, I really love the YouTube channel As Told by Kenya, and she is a huge reader, kind of doing reading videos all the time, and she kind of re-inspired me to start reading again because she was like, you know, you just need to find the right book. So I'm like, okay, let me go search, let me get some inspiration. And, you know, I just feel like reading is so important to expand your mind. And I listen to audiobooks, which is okay. Because, you know, as long as you're consuming the information, I just find it better because I can multitask doing stuff. I can listen whenever I want on the go. And I do love the feeling of a physical book, but I do not have the room nor do I feel like I need to spend the money on it. So anyways, I got back into reading and I challenged myself after 4 years to start reading again. And I'm going to kind of go through some of the books that I've been reading from September to now. So first is The Meaning of Mariah Carey, which I actually have the hard book copy of. I received this as a Christmas gift in 2020, but I actually already read the audiobook, which is narrated by her. And I've read this several times. I've read it, you know, just through the physical copy, through the audiobook, and then as well, I recently read it again with the audiobook following along in the book, which is an amazing, immersive experience. I highly recommend if you don't know anything about Mariah Carey. I'm a huge fan, and honestly, I learned so much. This is probably one of my favorite books of all time. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a huge fan, but honestly, it taught me so many important lessons, so many amazing quotable moments, so many amazing anecdotes about the music industry, which is something that I'm really passionate about. She co-wrote this book with Michaela Angela Davis, who is also a fabulous co-writer because she really takes Mariah's expansive vocabulary and knowledge around these stories and the details, kind of brings you into the situation. You can easily picture it, I think. I think she really helped her expand, kind of go back to that moment and what did the room smell like? What did it look like? Who was around? And there's a specific point where she talks about growing up at her dad's house, talking about Ritz crackers, having one Ritz cracker before dinner because she was hungry and he was very strict, had no snacks. The girls were starving. So I can't relate. But, you know, it made me hungry the way she described the Ritz cracker with such aversive detail. So I highly recommend that. Next is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. So I read her other book, How to Be a Badass with Money. I just really like the physical copy over there, but I'm not gonna get up now. And so I read that first because the cover I was in Indigo one day and it was one of the first books that I got back into. This was like in 2019, summer of 2019, but I reread it. Anyways, so it caught my eye, the cover, and so I thought this is an amazing book. And it so happened that this was the actual first installment of the series, which I had no idea about. And at the time, Clubhouse was popular, I actually started a book club and we read this chapter by chapter. And it was so also amazing because I was gonna buy the audiobook and I was looking for copies online, free copies for everybody, and I couldn't find it. But then it so happened that I was moving to this house and we actually found that my sister had a copy of this and she never read it. It was really a manifesting weird universe moment. So it was crazy. And yeah, this is a really great book. I mean, again, I love Jen's style of writing because it's very practical, very implementable. It's no BS. I feel like a lot of self-help books are very heavily filled with BS, filler, random stories about monks in, I don't know, somewhere meditating. And it's just I need real practical advice to be a badass. So this is a really great like self-help book if you're just starting into your self-development or just getting into a little bit of spirituality as well. It touches upon it. Next is Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I think this is an amazing book because I'm just going to talk about it briefly. It's just all about branding, and I think it's a whole analogy of you are not the hero of your story, your customers hear your story, and you're the guide to help them. And so I think this is a really amazing analogy that he goes through. Next is Unfuck Yourself by Gary John Bishop. So I read this just because this was kind of a popular book that I saw on audiobook, and I've seen the other girlies on TikTok on Book Talk. So I read it and I thought it was okay. Again, there's a lot of self-help books that I read last summer and that were very much filler, kind of the same lessons, same stories. So I really try to look for those unique stories that are gonna captivate my interest. Next is Surrounded by Idiots by Thomas Erikson. I think this is a really good self-help navigation book for people in business, for students, for anybody, just anybody in their early 20s. Is an amazing book to read because it's all about the 4 archetypes or colors of people that are in society. You have your red, which is like the dominant leader, the yellow, which is kind of the cheerful, happy all the time, positive. You have the green, who is kind of submissive and follows orders, and the blue, which I forget, but I think they're just like the very intelligent, kind of like erudite from Divergent, where they're very knowledgeable, kind of the know-it-all. So he kind of goes through the archetypes, how to interact with them, and I think a really important lesson from this was you can't change the way people interact, but you can strategically interact with them. And that is life-changing for me because I know there's a lot of idiots in my life, and I have to strategically interact with them to see the outcome that I desire. Next is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. Don't listen to the people on TikTok because Robert T, he has, again, amazing stories, and I like the way he intertwines it with a lesson that is implementable, and it's basically about setting yourself up financially now so you don't have to later. And I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it. I think it's a really highly book that's really good for anybody who just wants to learn a little bit more about finances. Next is The Desire Map by Danielle LaPorte. So this is a very overhyped book. I'm sorry to everybody. People who read this book, they tell me it's life-changing. On TikTok, they say it's amazing, it changed their life. I don't know, it just wasn't giving. Maybe because I did the audiobook. I found the audiobook, the person narrating, their tone was very annoying to me. They were very like whisperish. And unless it's like a song like Slave for You, I really don't want to hear somebody whispering over a track with meditative music. It was like a guided meditation that had no substance. That's what it felt like for me. But I read it. I always read all the way through and I keep an open mind. Next is The Power of Habit by Charles DuHigg. Again, another self-help book that I felt was very filler. But, you know, I wanted to learn about habits and how I can develop better habits or can maintain consistent with my other habits. And I don't know, I don't specifically remember anything from it. I'm sure it was a lovely book. I would have to say it's tied with the Mariah book for my favorite book of all time, which is 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna West. What can I say about this book and keep it relatively short? I think this is an essential book for anybody. And like in the last year, I have bought this book as a gift for both of my best friends and anybody else that I hold dear to in my life because I think it's an important book that everybody should read. I love this because you can read this book and you don't need to read any of the other filler self-help books. I think once you read this is like the textbook for self-help books. Like the girls are following this blueprint that Brianna laid down because I just love it. Because for me, I'm a list person and it's a bunch of essays with a lot of lists and there's 101 essays of all different topics related to self-help. So I think that it's just more productive to me because I can easily tackle an essay a day. Plus, it's almost like watching a YouTube video. If you think about a YouTube video like this, I'm kind of going through each book. Where here it's kind of the same flow. I don't know how to articulate this. But it just feels like it's more productive because I feel like it's 101 self-help books put into one book that I don't have to waste my time reading all these other books to learn something. And truly amazing quotes. Truly, I'm still rereading it again and highlighting and taking notes, slowly taking my time, but I've already read it twice. So I can't express it. Like she did that. And I can't wait to check out her other books. They're on my book reading list for this summer. And I'm excited to see what else she can come up with, because she did that. Next is What Happy and Successful People Do Differently by Mark and Angel Chernoff. Okay, I absolutely hated this book. I'm so sorry to them. They have a lovely story. I'm sure they're amazing people, but I listened to the audiobook and they were extremely annoying. It gave me very much fake positive, toxic positivity vibes, and voices were just very irritating, and I'm so sorry to them, but it just wasn't for me. They had great tips, but random stories about random people, and it just felt like we were going off on tangents all the time. And it's like, what is the point? How do I implement this? I hate questions, videos, or books that leave me with questions. Give me implementable advice. You don't need to summarize it, just give me something to implement. Next is Milk Fed by Melissa Broder, which we did in the Icon University in our monthly book club because I saw it on TikTok. And then when I didn't actually read the summary before picking it, which looking back, that's a really dumb decision because it was definitely an interesting book, I will say that. And so I don't want to spoil it too much, but it's a love story. And the main character, I don't know, it's like, it's so bad that it's good. That's what I'm gonna say. She's a very controversial writer. She's a very explicit writer, which I was not expecting. And I should have read the summary. And I'm gonna let you sit with that. Next is a couple books I had to read for school. So I had to read November Road by Lou Berney in my English essay class. This actually, out of all the books we read that semester, I was really dreading all the books I had to read. I had to read Wuthering Heights. It was awful. Do not ever read it. But November Road, it was good. It was really good because every chapter was a different perspective of the main characters. And I thought it was really interesting, the story. It takes place in 1964, I believe, just after the JFK assassination. Really good. I highly recommend. One of the best books I've ever written for school. Next, again, also one of the best books I've read for school, Parable of the Sour, I still can't say it. Parable of the Sour, that's what I'm calling it. Olivia Rodrigo Sour. Parable of the Sour by Octavia E. Butler. This also what I thought was a very good book. It kind of plays into the post-apocalyptic book genre of the mid-2010s, where it's basically this girl traveling with other people in her community to this kind of promised land, and it's basically like the blueprint for the Hunger Games and Divergent, what it was. And I thought it was also a very unique and interesting plot, and I may check out the sequel, but I'm not sure. It was a little bit long, I have to say, but very good. And each chapter kind of started with a Bible verse that she wrote from her own religion that she was developing. And again, I don't want to give away too much, but it's very interesting. Okay, next is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Again, another extremely overhyped book on TikTok. All the self-help girlies, all the vlog girlies with their matcha and their perfect lighting have that damn book with the 5-minute journal, and it's like, it's not giving. I'm sorry. It's so boring. The most generic. I mean, it is implementable. I will give him that. But I don't know. I just feel like I've heard it all before, and the advice was kind of impractical. I felt like it was for people who have like the time and flexibility in the day, which I don't all the time, to implement these habitual practices. So I don't know. Next is Insatiable by Daisy Buchanan, another TikTok recommendation that I took from Book Talk that I highly regret. I mean, it was okay, but it just wasn't worth me using my Audible credit on. Like, it's about this British girl who was like selfish, and she's getting involved with these other couple, and it's like, I don't know, it was just really stupid, and the ending sucked, and I don't know, it was very unnecessary drama that the main character was starting for herself. But next, I want to talk about another one of my favorite books, is Yours Cruelly, Elvira by Cassandra Peterson, who is known as Elvira, which was basically a B horror movie show from the early 80s. And she kind of rose to prominence as a socialite celebrity in the 80s and 90s. And I originally watched her Halloween movie from 1988 when I was just browsing at different Halloween movies. I was sick of watching the same movies all the time. So I browsed upon her movie, and then I kind of discovered this whole, her career, her story. And it so happened that the next Halloween, she was releasing a memoir for her 30th or 40th anniversary of her show. And so I found her life very interesting, because she went from, this small town girl, immigrant family, to a Vegas showgirl, to an actor, to the Elvira character persona, and also her personal relationships are crazy. She was also a groupie in the 60s with different rock and roll rock stars like Jimi Hendrix and Aerosmith. So it's just what an amazing life and a roller coaster that she went through. And that kind of brings me to where I'm at and the books that I'm reading. So now I was going to do 29 Gifts by Cami Walker for the book club in Icon University. It's about kind of 30 Days of Giving. But then also, I was also thinking of reading the Viola Davis memoir because I saw the special on Netflix with Oprah, and I also found her story very interesting, and she is one of my favorite actresses. So I don't know which one I'm going to do yet, but I'm probably going to try and read both at the same time, but I just don't think that's going to happen right now because right now I'm in a phase of podcasts and watching concerts, so we'll see where it takes me. But yeah, so what book should I read next? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to suggestions. I'm always seeing things on TikTok and regretting them later, but I'm sure there's going to be some good ones on the way because I see them, I screenshot them, add them to my reading list, and hope for the best. And yeah, so let me know in the comments below if you have any recommendations. I'm so open-minded. It can literally be any genre. It can be fiction, it can be non-fiction, I don't care. But what book should I read next? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to any suggestions. I'm always screenshotting things on TikTok and regretting it later, but I'm sure there's some good ones on my reading list that I've yet to get to. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss my next video. Please join our community. I post videos about social media, pop culture, lifestyle, and all things iconic. So I will see you then in my next video. Stay safe and have a great day. Goya.